Richardson, a New York Times bestselling author of the book Islamic Antichrist, as well as Mideast Beast and When a Jew Rules the World. I'm also the host of a program called The Underground with Joel Richardson. Well, I'm excited to announce that on December 2nd, Friday, December 2nd, 2016, I will be speaking at a conference in Seoul, Korea, for an all-day conference called Israel, Islam, and the End of the Age. This is an all-day conference. It'll be sponsored by BradTV. Listen, friends, as we, as believers, as the body of Christ, increasingly gets closer to that day when Jesus returns and reestablishes the throne of David and establishes the kingdom of God on earth, the scriptures are very clear that the attention of the whole world, the attention of the nations, the attention of the principalities and powers of the air will return to the place where it all began. As the Lord's grand promised plan of redemption for all of the earth reaches its culmination, the rage of Satan will increasingly surround and return to the very location where Jesus is going to return to establish his throne in Jerusalem. It is therefore incumbent upon believers, upon lay leaders, pastors alike, to gather together, to study, to understand, to better understand the centrality of Israel in God's promised plan of redemption, to understand the increasing relevance and role of Islam in the last days, and most importantly, to better understand the return of Jesus and why it is so central, why it is the focal point of hope, not only of all the scriptures, but literally of all creation. So I'm looking forward to being with you all on Friday, December 2nd, again sponsored by BradTV. The title of the conference is Israel, Islam, and the End of the Age. We'll put the information at the bottom of the screen. I'm looking forward to seeing you there, December 2nd.
This week on Jerusalem Dateline, how did Israeli Americans vote in the U.S. election? And what do they think of Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton? Plus, an exclusive look inside the Iraqi city of Sinjar. See what ISIS did to this once peaceful city. And for the first time in centuries, the tomb inside the Church of the Holy Sepulchre has been opened. All this and more this week on Jerusalem Dateline. Hello and welcome to this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Chris Mitchell. Thousands of Israeli Americans cast early ballots for the U.S. election. A new exit poll shows who they favor and why they voted. Pollster Mitchell Barak announced the results to the press.
Well, we found that the race is pretty much a dead heat. Statistically, it's 49% for Donald Trump and 44% for Hillary Clinton. So Americans here in Israel are pretty evenly split.
Barak said the number one reason why Israelis voted summed up this year's election.
When we asked people what was the main thing that they were looking at when voting, and half of them said the danger of electing the other candidate, combined with the high unfavorability, that kind of sums up the election very simply. This was just, you got to get out and vote, even though we don't like our candidate, because it's not the other person.
There's no official count, but it's estimated there are about 200,000 Israeli Americans eligible to vote. Many of them come from swing states, and if they vote, they could make a difference in the election.
There are certain swing states, whether they're Pennsylvania, whether they're in Ohio, in Florida, where you have not only large Jewish populations, but large populations of Israelis, American Israelis that are living here. So some of those are absentee ballots. We've seen in elections where it can get down to the wire and the absentee ballots are actually counted after the election, and those votes here could make the difference between the winner and loser in a state and the winner and loser in an election.
On the other side of the ocean, U.S. evangelical Christians are divided about what to do with Donald Trump. The views range from standing with him, abandoning him, or believing he has a biblical mandate. When the tape surfaced recently of Donald Trump saying inappropriate comments about women, some evangelicals said it was time to head for the doors. For example, World Magazine claimed Trump was unfit for power and asked him to step aside. A Trump step aside would be good for America's moral standards in 2016. It's still not too late to turn the current race between two unfit major party candidates into a contest fit for a great country. Yet another major evangelical leader, Dr. James Dobson, stands behind the Republican candidate. He wrote, "So, is Donald Trump good for America? I honestly believe that he has been already. He has shaken the political system. Do his comments offend me? At times. Do I agree with all he says? Not at all."
It's not a normal election, and so we almost need a different kind of candidate. Trump has the Cyrus anointing to navigate in chaos.
And one evangelical leader, Lance Wallnau, believes Trump is like the Persian king Cyrus the Great. According to the Bible, Cyrus ruled over ancient Babylon and made a decree that the Jewish temple should be rebuilt. He also allowed Jews to return to Jerusalem to help in the rebuilding.
He came in, this king, as a secular ruler and decreed for the building of the house of the Lord. He literally made it possible for the Jews to end the captivity.
Wallnau wrote a book about this Cyrus connection called God's Chaos Candidate.
I literally wrote the book for a 30-day purpose. It's like a sacrifice.
Yet others aren't so sure about this biblical analogy. One apologist wrote he sees a number of potential problems or gut checks that give him serious pause in regard to the Trump as Cyrus word. But Wallnau believes with China asserting itself, Russia getting more aggressive in the Middle East, and the threat of Iran growing, the world is getting more dangerous for the U.S.
America's going to have a challenge. Either way, with Trump, I believe we have a Cyrus to navigate through the storm.
Regardless of who the next U.S. president is, they'll have to deal with a volatile Middle East. For example, just to the north of Israel, Lebanon chose a new president, but it took him 2.5 years to choose him. His name, Michel Aoun, a former army general who pledges to bring change to his country. He recently talked with our Gary Lane to discuss the issues he plans to address.
Lebanon's new president is a former army general and a Maronite Christian. One of Michel Aoun's biggest challenges will be stopping the flood of Syrians crossing his country's border.
1 out of every 4 people here in Lebanon are Syrian refugees, and that's placed a tremendous burden on the economy.
Earlier this year, I talked to General Aoun at his home. He told me Lebanon is nearing a breaking point, and other countries need to share the burden.
We have a density of, right now, of 600 per square kilometer. In Canada, we have 4. In Australia, we have 2.
He said ending Syria's civil war is the only way to alleviate the refugee crisis. This week, in his first speech as president, Aoun pledged to keep regional fires from spreading to Lebanon. He told me a political solution is the only way to win peace in Syria, but resuming talks in Geneva is difficult.
No one wouldn't accept the other till now. They want to finish with Bashar al-Assad, and Bashar al-Assad is not,
Should he be finished?
He didn't lose.
Yeah.
He didn't lose yet. If they want to get rid of him, okay. They have to invade Damascus and get him.
Aoun has allied himself with Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah. That's a concern for the U.S., which says Hezbollah is a terrorist organization. Israel will surely take notice of this reference to Sheba Farms, a disputed area of land in South Lebanon under Israeli control. Aoun said his government would, quote, not spare any efforts to protect Lebanon from Israel and liberate the remainder of our lands. We will address terrorism in a preemptive manner. Gary Lane, CBN News.
The election of Aoun is important because he's allied with Hezbollah, the Shiite group connected with Iran. And Iran has its own agenda in the Middle East. For example, when we were in northern Iraq recently, we heard the saying that Iranians want to be able to take a bus all the way from Tehran, Iran's capital, to Haifa. In other words, they want to dominate the Middle East. Another group that wants to control the region is ISIS. And right now they're embroiled in a major offensive by coalition forces against ISIS inside Mosul, Iraq's second largest city. When we were in northern Iraq, we also visited the city of Sinjar, liberated from ISIS about a year ago. What we found there was shocking. Parts of Sinjar today look like ruins from ancient times or a destroyed city from a world war. ISIS did much of this destruction, while street fighting and Allied airstrikes did the rest. Before ISIS left Sinjar, they took terrorism to a whole new level. Behind me is one of the churches they destroyed. They also laid mines, set booby traps, and destroyed many other buildings. It wasn't just buildings. ISIS tried to wipe out the Yazidis, this peaceful religious ethnic group in northern Iraq. This is one of the mass grave sites outside the city of Sinjar. There's about 28 sites like this around here. You can see some clothes and human bones. About 1,500 Yazidis were killed. Most of them were men, but some were women and children. And the test for young boys was, if they raised their arm and had any underarm hair, they could be killed.
Feels heavy and wrong.
Dave Eubank of the Free Burma Rangers came to help the Yazidi people.
If anybody wants to know why you need to stop ISIS, you look at this. These are women and children and men, every kind of person, every age. You have little baby skulls this big with the front teeth bashed in. You can look, there's no teeth in the whole front nasal cavity. They're just smashed in like with a rifle or something. To slaughter whole families like that. And they're right there, not very far away, just probably about 1,000 yards away is ISIS.
Eubank says the war fought here is the same war facing the West.
These are our brothers and sisters. It's coming to us anyways. This is the war we didn't choose, and it's coming. It's already come to America. So we don't have a choice. Rationally, you don't have a choice. You have to stop this. Morally, much more importantly, we need to stop this for the sake of these people. So that's what I think the lesson learned is when evil comes, you don't wait. It's like an infection. You don't wonder if it's going to get better. You immediately attack it. That's how you start the healing.
After visiting the site, we found this man who witnessed the massacre.
When I saw this, I couldn't do anything. I was in the mountain defending our position since ISIS didn't capture Mount Sinjar. I felt sorry because I couldn't help. We couldn't come down.
During the fighting to capture the city from ISIS, the fighting went street to street and underground. This is one of the tunnels that ISIS dug throughout Sinjar. There was one on the other side, an entrance on the other side of the road. Under the road came here, and you just follow this down, and this goes to another building. This is how they fought the war, the battle for Sinjar. This one tunnel stretched through 5 buildings. Military experts expect ISIS has dug numerous tunnels like this one inside Mosul. In urban fighting, it gives the defenders of the city a big advantage. The city itself is littered with the debris of war. For example, this poster warns about picking up any leftover explosives. Yet in the midst of this danger and destruction, there's a sign of life, a playground.
This is a gift from Reload Love, which is a church in Albuquerque. And it was a vision. It's a product of great vision to put fun and joy in a war zone, to give kids that have lived through trauma of war some fresh piece of love from people who care and pray for them.
Its bright colors not only stand out in a war-weary city, but one young American saw the value of what a playground can do for the children of war.
In one of our church visits, one of the Sunday school kids was watching a video of kids playing at a different playground on another front line and said, I think they've forgotten about it. I think they've forgotten about the war. They're just playing. That's our joy in partnership with this, and it's our prayer for the kids that they would know something about God's love and a creative new opening in the midst of a difficult place.
It's likely a story that will be repeated in and around Mosul. But the playground stands as a sign of hope in a place, among a people, and in a region where hope seems to have fled. If you'd like an immersive experience inside the city of Sinjar, check out our 360 virtual reality video on our Facebook page. Coming up, take a look inside one of the UN refugee camps where thousands of Yazidis have lived for more than 2 years. Welcome back. When we traveled to northern Iraq recently, we had the opportunity to visit a refugee camp where thousands of Yazidis live. As you can see, it's one of the legacies of how ISIS has ravaged that region. This is home for these people, the UN refugee tents. They're not very big. A whole family can be living in them, and they're called IDPs, internally displaced people. It's a sterile term that means people have just literally lost their homes, their livelihood, and now living as refugees. It's been more than 2 years now. Who knows how long it's going to be for the Yazidi people. And there's talk of the city of Mosul being taken, that maybe because of that, maybe more than 1 million refugees will be throughout northern Iraq. And that's one thing that a lot of the NGOs, including Samaritan's Purse, that is one Christian organization that's been working here, and they're preparing for that as well. And they're also doing wonderful work trying to present the gospel in a practical way. They're providing material support, but also psychological counseling for many of these people who have lost most everything. Not as many kids as I expected, but if you could see around here, there's a few kids, one of the Yazidi men here, and they're probably curious about what we're doing. But part of what I want to do is just share the need they have to people be praying for them, that you could pray for the Yazidi people, that in the midst of this conflict and in the situation they're in right now, that the gospel of Jesus Christ would come to them. And so, as I said, we were here about a year ago, and not much has changed in that time. They're still going through a very difficult time. You can imagine what life would be like inside a tent like here. And if we can look down the road, Jonathan, you can just see some of the people that are, just milling back and forth. Some of the men here talking, sitting around. Salam. They're got their prayer beads, and many of these men don't have homes right now. You can see down the road here that a lot of the children just playing and going back and forth. Some of the kids playing over here in the little trenches, riding bikes. A lot of different ages right here. Young kids, probably 4 or 5 or 7 or 8, and young men probably in their late teens. And hey, and there's kids playing. We saw that a couple of years ago too, when they're waving to the camera. So I'm just going to end here, but if you can look, just you see almost from here, you can see just a sea of tents right now. When I was here a little while ago, I had sort of an epiphany for my own self, and when I saw these tents, I thought of the words that Jesus said on the Mount of Olives. It's recorded in Matthew 24, chapter 24, and Luke 21, and where it says it'd be wars and rumors of wars, and it hit me because of those wars and rumors of wars. There'd be people that would be displaced, just like these people, just like these Yazidi people, and how important it is to be able to pray for them, help them, support them. So please pray for the Yazidi people. Pray for people like Samaritan's Purse that are doing such a great job here, and pray for this region that needs so much help. One person said that all of Iraq is sort of like in post-traumatic stress disorder. In many ways, that's probably true, and we hope and pray that it won't get any worse, but get better. So God bless from Yazidi Refugee Camp here in northern Iraq. Coming up, see how one Christian organization is fighting back against the UN group that says there's no connection between the Jewish people, the Temple Mount, or the Western Wall. Welcome back to Jerusalem Dateline. By the way, we're coming to you this week from Ben Yehuda Street, a pedestrian mall in the heart of Jerusalem. Well, Christians around the world are standing together about what they see as a United Nations attempt to rewrite history in the Holy Land. CBN's Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl shows us what's behind this unified effort and what action one group is asking Christians to take.
It all started when UNESCO passed a resolution ignoring Jewish and Christian ties to Jerusalem's Temple Mount. One major result? Christians joining with Jews to condemn the move.
This is a horrendous scandal which should have never taken place, because the United Nations is a global body to represent the entire world, and they very in a blatant way sided with an Islamized agenda to basically Islamize the Holy Land.
To make matters worse, the UN body made its decision during the Feast of Tabernacles as thousands of Christians celebrated the biblical feast in Jerusalem.
They were scandalized. They said, these are our places. These are places where we worship. These are places which I find in my Bible. How it comes that the United Nations tells me now this is an Islamic site, places which Mohammed or none of the Muslim sages ever visited.
Dr. Jürgen Buehler of the International Christian Embassy Jerusalem decided it was time for Christians worldwide to take a stand.
We told them, please give a history lesson to UNESCO. Take a Bible, go to the bookshop and purchase a Bible, highlight some of the places where it speaks about Jerusalem, Hebron, Bethlehem, the Temple Mount, whatever it is, and send it to the UNESCO and tell them, well, these are places that are holy to us, and we are absolutely scandalized that those places are being Islamized today.
Many experts call the Bible one of, if not the most historically accurate document in history. In the Old Testament alone, Jerusalem and Zion are mentioned more than 800 times. Another 161 mentions are found in the New Testament, not including various other synonyms. Buehler sees the dynamics of the UN as a deck stacked against Israel. That's because there are 120 Muslim states and non-aligned countries in the UN that almost always vote against the Jewish state. But, he adds, that's not the real scandal.
But the real scandal is that even places like Italy, a Catholic nation, they should know better. Say, oh, we abstained from vote. We don't have an opinion if Jerusalem should be called Jerusalem or Al-Quds.
According to Buehler's calculations, Christians from dozens of countries have already responded, sending hundreds of Bibles to the Paris headquarters of UNESCO. A unique opportunity to not only take a stand, but share the Word of God as well. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Coming up, for the first time in centuries, what many believe is the tomb of Jesus has been opened inside the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Welcome back to Jerusalem Dateline. For the first time in centuries, researchers have uncovered what they believe to be the tomb of Jesus inside the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. It's in the heart of Jerusalem's Old City, where a major renovation is taking place inside the 4th century church. This National Geographic video shows workmen uncovering the marble slab over the tomb on October 26th. As the video says, the modest tomb has never before been photographed, and no drawings exist. It reported conservationists were surprised to find something their instruments didn't detect, a layer of debris beneath the marble cover. Then underneath the debris, they found another marble slab with a cross carved into its surface. Then they saw the original burial bed. Emperor Constantine ordered the church built in the 4th century. His mother, Queen Helena, came here to discover the tomb where Jesus was buried. The Roman Emperor Hadrian in the 2nd century built a temple here to the goddess Aphrodite. The historian Eusebius said he did it to cover the tomb where Jesus was buried. The examination of the tomb is part of a restoration project. Workers are preparing the structure known as the edicule, which means little house. It was built to protect the tomb. The last repair work done on the edicule took place over 200 years ago. Professor Antonio Marapoulou leads the restoration and told CBN News earlier this year about the project.
We will remove the marble slabs, the stone slabs. We will inject grouts to homogenize the complex structure, which is the Holy Rock. That means that we develop a unified structure, that all the layers will behave structurally as one. And upon this, after repairing with new compatible and performing mortars and concrete, we will readjust the stone slabs with titanium bolts.
For the workers, it's more than a job. Vasilios Sefalis is a Greek civil engineer.
So I'm very excited because I'm a Christian Orthodox and I am working in Greece in monuments like this. But this is a specialized project, very specialized project. I don't believe that I can go to something bigger than this.
Each one of us in front of the Holy Tomb feels the values of the Holy Tomb. And the Holy Tomb is the most alive place in the world. It gives the message of resurrection.
National Geographic plans to show more of its footage this month on its Explorer channel. The restoration should be completed sometime next year. The work going on inside the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is just one of the amazing things happening here in Jerusalem. Well, that's it for this edition. Thanks for joining us. Remember, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I'm Chris Mitchell. We'll see you next time on Jerusalem Dateline.